To commemorate the first day of Pride Month, the New York Times is admitting that conservatives are totally right about transgenderism. In a profile of Will Thomas, who is the hulking male swimmer that beat all the girls at the NCAA championship, the Times included a section titled, "The Debate Over the Science." But, as the Times acknowledged, there is not much debate. Beginning in the womb, the Times admits, men are bathed in testosterone and puberty accelerates that. Men, on average, have broader shoulders, bigger hands, and longer torsos, and greater lung capacity and heart capacity. Muscles are denser. The Times even quotes a sports physiologist who applies these scientific facts to Will Thomas. Quote, "Thomas is the manifestation of the scientific evidence," Dr. Ross Tucker explains to the Times. The reduction in testosterone did not remove her biological advantage. Lots of conservatives are going to be happy that the Times is finally acknowledging that boys and girls are different. They're going to say that this may finally be the beginning of the end for transgender ideology. And I hate to burst their bubble, but I think the opposite is true. I think this is the beginning of an even more radical stage of the sexual revolution. In the past, transgender activists have tried to argue that men who think they're women really are women. And it was never very convincing, but they were trying, at least, to make sense of transgenderism. Increasingly, it seems they've given up on that. Now they're not interested in making sense of their sexual ideology at all. They're just interested in enforcing it. No more logic, no more arguments, no more sense. Just the sheer tyranny of will. This is not the beginning of the end of transgenderism. I'm sorry to tell you, I wish that it were. Conservatives have been waiting for years now. They say transgenderism, that's it. That's going to be finally the dam breaking with all this crazy leftism. They're not going to be able to hold it together anymore. People are going to flee. I'm not sure that's true. Not sure that's true at all. Frankly, at least in the old days, when they would say, look, the hulking giant dude with the giant Adam's apple and wearing the tight little women's swim trunks where you can see all of her body parts, she is totally a woman, right? And we all knew that that wasn't true, and it was so obvious, but at least they were trying to have some kind of coherent argument. Now, they don't do that. Will Thomas basically will just say, and the people around him will say, yeah, he's got an advantage. Well, too bad. Will Thomas was asked about this very problem, and he didn't even address the argument. He didn't even really try to make sense of it. He just said, look, this is what I want, and so I'm going to do it.
There are some who look at the data and suggest that you're enjoying a competitive advantage. What do you say to that?
There's a lot of factors that go into a race and how well you do. And the biggest change for me is that I'm happy. And sophomore year, where I had my best times competing with the men, I was miserable. And so having that be lifted is incredibly relieving and allows me to put my all into training, into racing. Trans people don't transition for athletics. We transition to be happy and authentic and our true selves.
Look, I'm happy. Oh, what about the girls who don't want me to strip naked in their locker rooms? Well, who cares what they think? They're somebody else. They're not me, and this is what I want. Oh, you're asking me about the girls whose trophies I'm taking away and whose championships I'm taking, potentially whose scholarships I'm taking? Yeah, they're other people. I don't care about them. I care about me. Me. I'm happy. This is my authentic self. Now, obviously, it's not his authentic self. He is authentically a man, and he is deluded and thinks that he's a woman. And now our society, which has lost the thread even more than this guy has, is encouraging him to say that he's a woman. He is not authentically a woman. Ultimately, it's not going to make him happy. These lies don't make anybody happy, not in the long term. But he's not even addressing the question of truth and falsehood, the question of reality. He doesn't care. He is just locked entirely in his own will, in his own irrational desires. With all the pollen in the air in Nashville, it sort of sounds like I am transitioning right now. That's what it's going to sound like for a lot of people. With him, he doesn't even sound like he's on any particular drugs. He's got a deeper voice than I do right now. And he says, look, well, last year when I was competing with the men's team and I wasn't winning the races, I was sad. And now I'm competing on the girls' team and I'm beating all of them because I'm a hulking giant dude and I'm happy. So why are you asking me about all this nonsense about how boys have an advantage over girls and biology and reality? How dare you? How dare you talk about my happiness and the happiness of others? Who gives a damn? That's much scarier. When people are making bad arguments, that is preferable to people not making arguments at all. Because not making arguments at all just reduces politics to grunting and irrational sounds and brute force and interest. And increasingly, that's what our politics looks like. And there is a catering toward this extremely small sexual minority. The San Francisco mayor, London Breed, has just announced her plan to tackle the homeless problem. There's a huge homeless problem in San Francisco. That city has collapsed in recent years. There's crime everywhere. You want to talk about needles and addiction. There's needles all over the streets, human feces all over the streets. The city is looking really, really bad. But London Breed is not going to be addressing homelessness writ large. She's not going to be spending money to tackle the homelessness problem. She's spending money to tackle transgender homelessness. She says, today I announced my 5-year plan to end transgender homelessness in San Francisco, which includes investing in programs to support and create real long-term change in the lives of transgender people. She's going to be spending $6.5 million to do this. Why? Why? Why are all of the resources going toward an extremely small number of sexual deviants? Why? It's not that I don't have sympathy for these people. It's not that I don't want to help these people. But why are they the only people that we're helping? How about homeless veterans? Don't you think maybe homeless veterans deserve a little bit of our taxpayer money? Don't you think they deserve a little bit of our attention? This is going to be shocking to say. Don't you think they might even deserve a little more of our attention than people who you are defining simply by their perverse sexual identities and desires and self-conception? Don't you think maybe if you went out and you served our country and you put your life on the line to defend our freedom, don't you think maybe you deserve a little of our consideration? No. Well, how about the homeless elderly, senior citizens? Don't they deserve any of our consideration? No. Only an extremely small minority of men who think that they're women, usually, and an even smaller minority of women who think that they're men, whose delusions we are encouraging, they get all the attention, they get all the money, they get all the focus, to the exclusion of everyone else. It's a hierarchy. And part of the reason that this is happening is because the left understands incentives. And they like this. They are promoting sexual confusion. They are discouraging a politics based on reason, based on purpose, based on traditionally understood conceptions of the good and what's right and what's true and what leads to a flourishing society. And they're encouraging people to pursue one moral maxim above all others, namely, if it feels good, do it. This is why Kirk Cameron, the actor who's an outspoken Christian, just came out. He got in a lot of trouble yesterday. He was trending all over social media because he was encouraging homeschooling. And he said, public schools are not merely neutral. Public schools are not merely ignoring what is good and true and beautiful, but they're actively undermining all of it.
They don't want to abandon their children to a system that, by and large, is doing more grooming for leftist politics and sexual chaos and racial confusion than they are doing any real educating about truth, beauty, and goodness.
100% totally right. How could you send your kid to these schools today? The public schools, a lot of the private schools, for goodness sakes, even some of the Christian schools are encouraging this stuff. The point of education is to educate you. It's to train you. It's to cultivate all those best things in you. It's to, as Kirk points out, pursue the good, the true, and the beautiful. So if all the schools are doing is grooming leftist politics and sexual chaos, how could you send your kids there? By the way, the wealthy, the elite, they're probably not sending their kids there. They're probably sending their kids to a more ordinary, at least relatively more ordinary, serious school that might in some way educate them. But for all the rest of you hoi polloi out there, no, spend your days watching Drag Queen Story Hour, because that's good for our political agenda, so says the left. I'm so glad you like that clip. Now, you know what you got to do. You got to smash and ring and bang and boom and zip and hit the bell and do the subscribe so that you can get notifications when all of my videos come out. You can also go to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Play, wherever you get your audio podcasts. Leave a 75,000-star review. We'll see you next time.